Hello there, York County, South Carolina. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Fort Mel, in the shadow of Charlotte, the foot of Mount Belzoni, the buckle of the Bible Belt, this is the York County Democratic Party's YouTube show and podcast. We call it YCDP, cut short there, TV. I'm Gary Pierce. I am your producer and sort of host of the program, and this is going to be episode 29. This program was also recorded on February 1st, 2025, and I'm going to call it the Execs Get Political. So we did a show with our executive committee, our executive board, talking about the York County Democratic Party convention coming up. That would be this here. It is coming up on March 15th, 10 a.m. at the Union Baptist Church in Newport. We'll call it Newport. Street address is Rock Hill. We'll call it Newport. So that, and a lot of the business of the York County Democratic Party is business, getting things done. Not a ton of politics in that. It's not really the fun part. Politics is the fun part. Well, all these guys are very political animals. And so once we concluded the discussion on what was coming up for the convention, I asked them to get a little political. And they did. It is rare, I think it's actually never, that we've had this collection of leadership here on the podcast. We had an election last November. Many of us were disappointed in the results nationally, not too surprised in the results statewide and locally because we know where we live. But between then and now, I think everybody kind of got knocked back a little bit by what happened nationally, especially the presidential election. I would like to get some reaction from you guys to what Nikita was saying, an active and vibrant county party. We are active and we are vibrant, but we need to show it. How have you guys reacted to that election, and what are you thinking as we are going into a difficult national 4 years and how we handle it locally? Who wants to catch the jump ball?
I'm gonna cut Nikita off and go first. There were so many mixed emotions. First off, full disclosure and brag point, I was there at Howard that night of the election, and it was working hard for the campaign, canvassing. I was canvassing in Charlotte, canvassing in Rock Hill for Senator Mike Fanning. Sorry, Melissa, I had to bring him up. And losing that. Let's bring it down to the macro level. Let's bring it down to our local election first, then go up. So for me, losing, was it 32 votes? Correct me if I'm wrong. 28 votes. We lost 28 votes. Senator Mike Fanning, his seat. That was a gut punch because at the end of the day, local elections matter. We have city races coming up in the next couple months. These elections are what impacts you, the voter, here in your street corner, your local level. How these federal monies get spent from the federal level down to you is up to these local people. And now we lost a key ally in protecting our public money. That is, first off, we have $1.8 billion gone. Now we have school vouchers, which is more our tax money going to these private schools. So he lost his vote. But I also look at the fact that our school board member, Jennifer Hutchinson, won by a huge margin, 27,800 something votes. So there is a plus and a minus. Then I bring it up to the national level with the Harris campaign, who I am openly biased. We didn't lose by that much when we lost, but the election was very close. It was a 1.5% loss. We look at 2020, Biden won more. Trump thinks this is a mandate. It's not a mandate. But I think, the Democratic brand as a whole, the Democrats as a whole, as our brand, people like to poo-poo on us more than the Republican Party. We have the Republican Party that is a huge brand of conservatism and better for business. Than the Democrats. What do we stand for? And I think people get lost, have been lost, as what Democrats stand for and what are our values. we have become, a party that has been more elitist. I feel like I've seen it with my own eyes here in this own party infrastructure, where it was people, messaging me saying I shouldn't raise money to go to the national convention because, we pay our own way. And so I think it's important for people to realize that, Democrats, we welcome everybody, regardless of socioeconomic standards. And so I think we need to, as a party as a whole, let's take a step back and get back into our communities so we can win these close elections. In South Carolina, we're not a hard red state. We lose elections by 30, very close margins. And our branding needs to be better of what we stand for. We stand for the working people. A lot of people don't know what middle class is. Working people. We are all working individuals. We need to stand for the values that everybody has a respect, and that we all need to have safe, secure country to live in. But we also want good paying jobs. We want the ability to make a living within our own means. And for some people, Donald Trump has been able to give that way of saying, yeah, I want whatever he offers, which is absolutely crazy. Within this last week, it felt like 3 decades of lifetimes have gone through.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
Sure. I'm a political scientist, so I'm looking at this from a variety of perspectives. South Carolina is increasingly Republican, and they now have supermajorities in both houses of the General Assembly, which means there's very little that the Democratic Party can do, or the Democratic members can do, to stop bad things from happening. Nationally, the presidential election was decided by 5 states that voted for Trump in 2016, Biden in 2020, Trump in 2024. And those were states that Obama had won in the past, that Hillary Clinton lost, Biden got back, and then Kamala Harris lost. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. It wasn't a landslide. Trump was elected to his second term because of narrow victories in 5 states. And he's claiming a national mandate. He's claiming a huge majority, touching on what Ryan said, and he doesn't have one. And if we're going to stop this stuff, and stuff is a polite way to put it.
Keeps me from putting the E on the podcast.
If we're going to stop this, the Democratic Party is the vehicle, and we have to figure out how to do that. And a lot of us are still kind of figuring out the most effective way to do that. I agree with what Ryan said. I think Ryan put it very well. But our job right now is to figure out how to resist, how to organize opposition, how to organize resistance, and stop these people from doing what they're doing and eventually replace them.
Let me bounce this off the professor. All of the punditry, all of the things that everyone discusses as the reason we lost some of our base and the reason the election went one way or the other are important points, and they're valid points. But the way I look at it is that there is a 5 to 10% group of people that swing elections.
Yes.
The bases generally remain solid. And that 5 to 10% people, A, don't pay any attention to what we're talking about. They don't watch the news. They are influenced in the last couple of weeks or maybe the last couple of days, a little bit by advertising, a little bit, maybe a lot by social media, but mostly whatever vibe they're getting about things. And the vibe they had last time was prices are too damn high. They remember inflation. And they don't want to hear, well, yeah, but inflation is lower now. They don't care. Prices are still high. Trump promised to lower prices, and then once he was in office, he said, yeah, that may be a little bit harder than I thought.
You think?
So A, nothing we could have done about what they were thinking about, and B, we can't reach them. Am I right?
And
am I close?
yeah, and we have to figure out how to reach them. If you look at some states that Bill Clinton won, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, those used to be swing states, and now they're solidly Republican. There are states that shifted to Republican when Obama ran and have not come back. It's not only 5 to 10% who decide the election, it's 5 to 10% of the voters in the swing states. And we lost them this time. Black turnout was way down in Philadelphia. And that's a big chunk of the margin by which Harris lost Pennsylvania. We got to figure out, how do we get a message to those people that they will positively respond to, and how do we get them to show up and vote for us? And that right now, that's a monumental challenge. And I'm one of the ones who's still figuring out how to do that.
I agree with John. I don't know how you get people to the polls to vote, and it's beyond me the number of people that only voted, for the presidential seat and didn't vote for any down ballot seats. It's one of the reasons Mike Fanning lost his seat. But I try not to be surprised every day of the horrible things that are happening. I saw a blurb this morning, I think it's in Tennessee, that has passed something saying if you don't agree with Trump and vote the way he says to vote on issues or don't support him, they're going to fine you, the elected officials, they're going to fine them $3,000, and they may even have to serve time or give up their seat. I know, that's crazy. I know.
Dissent will not be tolerated.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a national horror show the past couple of weeks, and it's not stopping.
Yeah. No.
And I modified my language because I wanted to say the S word.
Well, I'm just embarrassed for the United States, All the other countries are like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah. So
Crazy.
Trump is acting like he has a mandate, acting like he has all the country behind him. And
right.
He has enough power at this point that we can't do very much about it now. So two things about that. That little group of folks in the middle that swing, John and everybody, they're not Trump people. They're not loyal to him. They will swing again. I still don't know how we reach them.
Well, I was looking at numbers too. Like I think 100,000 Biden voters in Wisconsin didn't come out to vote in Wisconsin. And so my question to people, and this is what I ask people, because I try to understand people's perspectives and what they're coming from. And there is a national, like I go back to the brand of the Democratic Party as a whole. And I had friends that voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016 in the primary, Clinton, Biden, and then this election they voted for Trump. And I'm just like, what was the logic? Like, help me understand so I can do better to understand. And part of it was they just felt like this administration was not focused on the working class as it should have, even though we had such great historic, the Infrastructure Act, the first act he signed in the first 100 days to come down with COVID. But we don't brand ourselves like the Republicans did. I watched the first White House press conference with this new administration, and it was pictures of criminals being deported. We're not out here saying the Democrats just, are paving this bridge, fixing Malfunction Junction is about, well, Clyburn does a really good job of explaining that, of the 77 and 26 interchange. But our local officials that have the trust, our state house and our state representatives, our Congress people that are elected Democrats, are not out here saying this is because of the Democrats that are in power. And we're also we're trying to bring logic to Donald Trump. There's no logic. He's out here saying DEI did a horrific plane crash, or it was the Army. People don't want this simple politics as usual because they don't feel like they're being heard and seen and understood. So that's how Donald Trump came in. And a lot of people, this is probably going to be another episode of this podcast, but a lot of people, I think a lot of older people remember the NAFTA being signed in by Bill Clinton and how that ultimately affected their daily lives of shipping jobs overseas. But we don't forget that Ronald Reagan set the bedrock of the North American Free Trade Agreement. And so we have people saying the Democrats are horrible for police reform. Joe Biden was the one who pushed forth the police reform bill of the 90s. And so there's a lot that we just don't push back on. We don't label the Republicans as crazy, as strange. Tim Walz was doing it, then was muffled by his handlers. So we need to brand them as absolutely crazy. Like, you're going to take public money and put it to a private school that you don't have to guarantee that Black kids can go, disabled kids can go to, anybody, but and allow people that make up to $118,000 a year, they can use public funds to go to their private schools of their choice, but call it school choice. But let's not call it resegregation. And we just sit here on our thumbs. There's $1.8 billion missing in South Carolina. And what are we saying about it? What are we doing to create the narrative that 30 plus years of Republican regime in South Carolina has done absolutely jack crap in this state to help the middle class?
Maybe we should just push that E button now.
The working class.
I want to get back to the point that Darlene made, because I have the numbers from the last state committee meeting. There were 65,000 people in South Carolina who voted for Harris and then walked out of the booth. Mm-hmm. And didn't vote for state senate, didn't vote for Congress, didn't vote for anything else. They came in, they pushed the Harris button and left. There were 9,000 people in South Carolina who only voted for Trump. So the Republicans did a lot better job of pushing the whole ticket than we did.
Yeah, they had more coattails. Mm-hmm. So, Nikita and Amber, I don't want to accuse the Black electorate as a monolith, and I don't want to make either of you the voice for Black people, but can you give us any feeling or perspective on where some of your community went?
Melissa's here too.
Melissa, I'll target you too. Sorry.
I'm going to go back to South Carolina's motto, while I breathe, I hope. I've told some people, if you have a hopeless people, then you have a people that's not going anywhere. And so we have to have hope. We have to find hope in every aspect, even in this despairing times. We got to find a glimmer of hope to help push us and continue, because what we can't do is we can't become complacent. We can't become stale because this fight is still here. We have to, if no more time than now, we have to come together and focus on a goal, focus on what we're trying to do. And especially here in the York County Democratic Party, we have to come together and to help move our mission forward. That's why we have the office hours still open after the elections, because we want people to know that you have a safe place that you can go to and vent your concerns and have conversations and to be around like-minded people. And to have uplifting and encouraging words. But we also have to remember, we need to go back to the basics of what true politics is, the basics of going back to your social study, remembering what you learned in those time periods, because that's going to help educate and help make people or move people to understand that politics is based on your everyday life. Everything that we do on a day-to-day basis involves politics. And I think we've forgotten that along the way, because we've allowed politicians who currently hold seats or who have held seats in the past not to work on behalf of the working people, not work on behalf of the people that elected them. And they kind of gone in and just did things their way to benefit them and not benefit the people that they serve. And we have to know that we do have the power. We have the power. We just got to use our power, and we can't be afraid of our power. And our power is the right to vote. If you get people out to vote, it can change and it will move the needle. But we got to encourage one another to use our power to the best of our ability and to elect people who are going to work on our behalf and work for the working people that the Democratic Party supports. And so that's why we're working towards getting these committees together so that we can work collectively so that we can let our largest county in South Carolina, let our voices be heard. And so we have to do things such as contact our elected officials, let them know that, hey, we see you, we see how you're voting, we see how you're talking, and we are actually seeing what you're doing or what you're not doing. We have to go down to the state house. We have to let them see us down there. We have to go to the city council meeting, the school board meeting, the county council meetings. We have to let these people know that we're no longer going to stand back. And if we haven't done that in the past, now more so than ever is the time to do that. We can see from past history what happens when a people move. Things happen and things change. And so that's what we need to do. We need to be moving towards doing the right thing and having the right thing done for the people here in our area. And so that's what we got to do. We got to go back to the basics.
And that's why she's the chair. Just like that.
Yeah. Amber and Melissa, did you guys hear any more from your community that you feel would add to the discussion?
Yes. Hi, everyone. With being boots on the ground last fall, being Senator Fanning's campaign manager, and by the way, happy Black History Month. Today is February 1st, 2025. Right. So my life's mission is Black history and explaining and educating Black Americans about their history. Because what I found is you can't tell one without telling the other. And one without the other is Black history is all intertwined with politics. Every move in Black history has been political, from slavery to Reconstruction to Jim Crow to civil rights. All is intertwined in politics. So when Black Americans tell me they don't do that politics thing, that is just saddening to me, because every move that they make, being cursed out and telling me that they don't F with politics. And I said, sir, no disrespect, but politics F's with you.
Yeah.
It F's with your children, and it's going to F with your great-grandchildren, so on and so forth. Because every move coming down from CRT, dismantling Black African-American history in the state of South Carolina, which Mike Fanning was definitely a proponent for. He's been a big proponent for anti-vouchers, and Ryan has previously stated, when you basically take money or funding from one group and give it to the other to disenfranchise, you're taking away their history, you're taking away their rights to get a good education. So I am very discouraged in the state of South Carolina, but as Nikita said, we are going to move forward. We're going to press forward and to continue to educate people about the importance of voting and how our history is intertwined, and how big of a difference we can make when we all come together and vote for a specific reason and for a specific purpose. So we've got to do our job to continue to try to educate those who just don't know that history isn't in fact repeating itself. So we have got to continue to educate our people to make sure that they show up to the polls and understand the importance of showing up to the polls, because we have missed a generation of people whose parents, for some reason, did not instruct them or tell them why grandmother voted, why grandmother could not vote. In my terms, my mom, there was a time where my mom could not vote. So it's very important for me and imperative for me to do what I could not do and understand the reasons why and the importance why it benefits each and every generation after me.
To be honest with you, Miss Nikita and Miss Melissa, they really talked about it all. And I tell you, they're hard acts to follow because they're both just prolific speakers. But I did want to, not necessarily from the political standpoint, but probably more so from the emotional standpoint. I know a lot of people feel unseen and they feel unheard. And I think a lot of that because the only times people feel like evening party comes around is during an election cycle. And how do we help people feel included all the time, not just on a presidential year, but also help them understand, like Miss Melissa said, that your history is tied to it, and not just your history, but your present and your future are also tied to politics. And even if, it's just the dog catcher, right? You should vote down the board. And I think that the understanding that a lot of times when you ask about the community, a lot of the times African American women feel like they are the backbone. A lot of movements are on the backs of African American women. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not too sure about what the numbers were for South Carolina, but I think nationally, 92% of African American women showed up and tried to have their voices heard in the election, hoping to sway it a different way. So I think when you're looking at the African American community, a lot of the times they feel disenfranchised. A lot of the times we have been told that our opinion doesn't matter, or that we do not have a say, and that our vote doesn't count. And it's really hard to silence those intrusive thoughts when that's something that's been repeated over and over and over to you. And I think that's the work that we have cut out for us, is really kind of getting in there and silencing those thoughts that have been repeated to us over time and kind of ingrained in us in a way that really makes us take for granted the things that our ancestors fought hard for.
Thank you, Amber. Everybody expected women would really be stepping up, especially related to having overturned Roe and the abortion question. And the punditry that I heard is that they really didn't show up so much. And by the way, feel free to turn it back on John and me as old white men. I'm not sure where we're culpable here, but I'm sure we are at some point. But what about the women thing?
I tell you, I got very excited that there was a lot of people voting and the lines were long. Usually, or normally in the past, that would have shown us that the Democrats were voting because the Republicans usually don't vote early. So I was wrong. Those people were out there, and I overheard a lot of them talking, and one of the issues was abortion. That just irritates me that people would vote for one issue. But that's just something that they have been wanting to do for a long time, and it's to overturn Roe versus Wade. And then, by golly, he did it with his crooked justice.
His bought and paid for Supreme Court.
There you go. That's the word. So it was very irritating. I was just thinking that next Sunday, Super Bowl, I was thinking about pulling for the Chiefs, but I just got to thinking that Mahomes' wife said she voted for Trump. Well, that means probably Patrick did too, and I like that little quarterback. I don't know, I may have to change my red shirt in for a green shirt and support the Eagles, because I just get so irritated if I see people still talking about the price of eggs. Oh my gosh. And here in Fort Mill, there is the location on Pleasant, right beside of, on the other side of the Walgreens, where a guy is set up and still selling Trump stuff, flags and crap. I want to go over there and just, well, anyway, wish it wasn't there. I think some people have called to the sheriff's department, to the county, because I don't think that's his property. But anyway, women, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
I don't either. This is Diane. I don't know what to say either. When I'm ranting and raving, sometimes I say I blame the women. We just have let it go. And price of eggs, that scares me. But what scares me more is a bird flu is hanging out there that may or may not turn into an epidemic.
Exactly.
Trump's administration is doing nothing about health issues.
They're doing worse than nothing. They're driving us backwards.
They're driving us backwards, and not only doing nothing, but they are, taking away the health part of clinics that are available for people. So I don't know. It's sometimes I just want to crawl back under my blanket, and other times I want to get out there and scream and yell and punch people.
I have a suspicion that Elon Musk's goal is to have a private monopoly on healthcare in the United States.
Exactly.
I think he wants to own the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Private everything.
Private everything. Privatize everything.
Yep.
Yeah, there's money in it. The veterans, everything that he finds out there's money there. Yeah, they want to take it all.
I mean, there's a philosophy within the Trump wing that the government should not do anything that somebody in the private sector could do for profit. So they're fine with, privatized schools, privatized healthcare, privatized whatever, and they don't care if it turns into a monopoly, and they don't care about issues of equitable access or anything like that. It's just, this is just one big business deal as far as they're concerned. It's not about the public welfare.
So, John, where did you and I, where are we culpable? Or did we do our part? I don't know.
You mean white men?
Yeah, old white men.
We got to get white people to stop voting against their economic interests. Working class white people.
Right.
And
but
I don't
we
know how
can't
to
say
do
that
that.
they're voting against their interests because they'll get offended.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't communicate that. I don't know. It's just we have to have a completely new way of communicating this, and I don't know what it is.
Well, this old white woman don't want her Social Security taken away either,
Kind of depend
or
on
her
that.
Medicare.
Ryan, your constituency, I guess we'll call you the LGBTQ plus constituency, make you the spokesperson for all. Was also,
We knew that the majority of us, I have run into a few individuals. The big thing with them, the vote for the war in the Middle East was a huge contention point. But we also knew at the end of the day, our rights are so precarious. In some state, I think Idaho just passed a law that wants to have the Supreme Court hear the marriage ruling that they did already. So I had a lot of friends that I had to be emotional support to. And I was like, I need emotional support myself. A lot of the older individuals that I know in the LGBTQ community are saying this is just bringing us back to the days of when HIV/AIDS was rampant. We mourn in the morning, we protest in the afternoon, and we dance at night. So it's and that's the motto that I say to every group, every person in feeling this is like, we have a period of mourning, we have a period of activism, and then we need to find joy and outside of the politics, I think is just the important aspect of it, of what brings us joy in order for us to continue for the next 4 years, because they're going to be long. I saw a picture of Kamala Harris in her hoop earrings at the LA fire, and she was looking good with that leather jacket on. So we're not gonna give up. We're gonna keep fighting forward. But I also think that we also cannot shove out people that we don't agree with within our own party. I can see it. I understand why some of my friends that were active in the Democratic Party process have walked away, because some people treated them wrongly or differently. And I get it. I've been a victim of that too. But I continue the fight of the core values of the Democratic Party, which is equality for all, justice for all, a good working and jobs, good housing economics, good candidates to fight for our educational systems in our country. And so I want us to focus on that, and that we come together and build up forward. And I'll just say this, Darylene was talking about the Patrick Mahomes earlier. The Philadelphia Eagles, the last time they won the Super Bowl, Trump was in the White House, and they'd said a F you to Trump and didn't even show up to the White House. So that's who I'm pulling for in this in this Super Bowl.
We'll bring it down to football.
Sunday. Yes. Bring it back to football. And, part of the Clyburn Fellowship, I had a Saturday afternoon with Representative Clyburn, and it's like, sometimes you have to let your opponent have that ball. so we can reorganize. And today, right now, the Democratic National Committee is electing the new leader for the party going forward. And it's all going to be about organizing. And how do you build up trust? You look at North Carolina, their down ballot Democrats won more than Kamala Harris because they trusted those people running. So how can we build the trust with our communities that we don't take advantage, like Amber said, that we don't pop up every 2 years for an election, but build that trust with the individuals of our key constituencies without having them feel like they're being taken advantage of, that they're not being ignored, because some of them, and I tell this to some of my friends that live up north that are very much more progressive, we have to think long term. Republicans have done that since the day of Ronald Reagan, Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson. They thought the long game. We think next election. What is our long game as Democrats going forward to ensure that we have school boards and the presidency? So that's what I think it's important for us to keep focused on moving forward.
2022 is not that far away. Probably South Carolina is not going to have a big shift. Once again, we know where we live. We're not going to give up, but we know where we live.
I think if we can too, we need to support any of those Democrats out there running for those vacant seats. If any way we can support them. I know I'm supporting the lady from Florida, Gabe Valamont. She was a leader in Moms Demand Action, so I know she's a good gun sense person. So and if we can support any of those, we certainly need them.
Yeah, that's what I saw during the presidential campaign, is a lot of effort from here went to sending postcards and writing and communicating with folks out of state to try to energize them, because doing it for most of our local candidates wasn't going to do very much. But the most local that we get, we do have an effect. Our biggest positive point were the school boards, where one Moms for Liberty candidate won between Rock Hill and Fort Mill. But they had pushed hard to put in Moms for Liberty type candidates into school boards, and they failed. Apparently, locally, people were paying more attention to that than that. And the constituencies that sat back or walked away or felt neglected in 2024, first of all, we have to make them realize they're not being neglected. And I'm not quite sure how to do that, because perhaps we were. Joe Biden was not a great communicator. I think he was a very good president, but he was not a great communicator. But I think we've got a pretty good chance that those constituencies that said, well, I'm staying home, or I'm maybe even voting for Trump, will look at what's happening now, if they're paying any attention at all, and say, oh my God, and they will be back.
Well, just to the point you made a second ago, school board races are nonpartisan. So there's no D on the ballot. There's
nonpartisan.
No R on the ballot.
Yeah, we'll put the air quotes around them.
The election is, the ballot is nonpartisan.
Yeah.
I mean, people, it's like mayor of Rock Hill. Everybody knows who the Democrat is. Everybody knows who the Republican is, even though there's no D or R on the ballot. But I think we may, here in York County, South Carolina, we may have more of an advantage maybe in races that are not immediately identifiable as D versus R, like school board. Although there's been a move in the Republican Party in Columbia for several years now, they want to make school board races partisan. They are in some places. I believe in Greenville County, the school board is partisan. I just wanted to put that out there.
I would feel remiss if we didn't give a big shout out to Evangeline Hunley and Matt Villardo, who both did a second try. One of the big problems that we have here, as I've observed in the relatively short time that I've been here, coming up on 4 years, is that we get candidates who are one and done. They get convinced, motivated to run against a more established Republican, or for a seat that has just been, because Matt didn't have an incumbent opponent this time. We thought he would do better. They make that race and they get whooped and they walk away. We never hear from them again. And both Matt and Evangeline gave it a second try. I don't know if they'll go for one more. Yeah, Matt again is going to run for chair of the party. I don't know where that's going to leave him in terms of running for the state house again. I don't know what Evangeline's plans will be. I wouldn't blame either one of them for saying we tried twice and the results didn't change enough. But nobody.
Trump didn't give up when he lost.
Yeah, and nobody is. I mean, you need the recognition. You need people to start recognizing who you are, and you don't get that in your first election, and maybe even your second. Maybe starting with your third, you do. But to get those people to do it, they need a tremendous amount of support.
One last thing, not only to Matt and Evangeline, they're putting their names out there several times, but also to John Zabel. He knew he had to do something. And when I spoke with him, that's what he said. He said, I just got to do something. And he did. So if no one else take a playbook from John Zabel's playbook, just do something.
And he did fairly well compared to you're looking at the results. So.
Yeah, just do something. And that's what we're going to have to do moving forward. We're going to have to do something. That's why the headquarters are open. You have a place to go to have conversations and to get ideas on what we can do to help move the party. Because this party won't move forward just by the ones that's sitting here, but it's going to take collectively all of us working together towards one common goal. To get us to get out and move. So thank you.
All right, I'm glad I asked you guys to get into the politics a little bit because that was a lot of fun. The convention comes up on Saturday, 10 a.m., March 15th, 2025, at the Union Baptist Church. The post office address is Rock Hill. The actual location is Newport, and we will see you there. Let me push some buttons and make things happen here. Everybody start waving goodbye because the title is going to come flying across. This has been the York County Democratic Party YouTube show and podcast. We call it YCDP TV. We will be back. Thank you guys for joining us. See you next time.
Love the music, Gary.
Over and out.